Years ago, when I first started working on the henna artist, I did so much research for that book, and I ran across an article about a woman named Amrita Sher-Gill. And I thought, well, who is this? She was a very prolific artist. She was a painter who had studied largely in Europe and then had gained a lot of notoriety there. She was the youngest member admitted to the Paris Salon, which is a big deal. She also was half European and half Indian. And I thought, well, that's interesting. She had spent her early years in Europe and studied there with painting tutors and so on. But then she moved down to India because she really felt that people like Picasso, painters, male painters, owned Europe at that time. Women were actually in a crowded field and they could not get any purchase. So she thought, if I go down to India and maybe make a name for myself there, I would have more breathing room. And indeed, that is what happened. And what she did was she brought her avant garde sensibility to this what's called Pahari painting. It's very stylized, it's very Mughal court-ish. And so she was doing something completely different. And not only that, but she was a charming woman with wealth behind her. So she had very little care about what people thought about her. She was going to be fine either way. She didn't really care. And so there was something about her that was very bold and outspoken. And, she slept with men, she slept with women, she slept with people long after she was married. She just didn't have any rules. And I found this fascinating about her. And I thought, why don't I know about this name? I should know, and the world should know about this woman. And then I found out that she had died very young. So when she was 28, she showed up at a hospital in India and she was having a lot of abdominal pain and, there was some bleeding and so on. And 2 days later, she was dead. So because she died so young, we don't have a body of work extended over a lifetime like we do with people like Picasso or Manet or Monet or any of those guys. And so I think that had she lived, she could have been a name that trips off our tongue, like Frida Kahlo or like Mary Cassatt or, any of those other painters. And I wanted to make sure that she is not forgotten. So I thought, how can I write a story around this? Well, there's a lot of mystery around her death. Nobody really knows how she died. Nobody really knows why she showed up at that hospital with those pains. Her mother thought that her husband had killed her. And, there's all this speculation. And I thought, well, if there's all this speculation, I'm a fiction writer. I could speculate too. But I didn't want to do it with the actual figure of that painter because some of her family are still alive. I wanted to fictionalize it a little bit. So I created the character of Mira Novak, who is half Indian and half Czech. And so she then is in India painting and making a name for herself. She shows up at a hospital in Bombay and she is taken care of by this young nurse, a very innocent and kind of naive nurse who is also half Indian and then half British. So they bond over these dual identities. And they also bond because they're about the same age. Sona, the nurse, is only 26 years old, and Mira is 29. They bond also because Mira senses that Sona wants a larger life, and Sona does want a larger life, but she is so sheltered. She is so worried about taking care of her mother and making enough money as a nurse and so on, that she doesn't dare step outside of her comfort zone. Well, Mira makes that possible because when Mira dies 6 days into her stay at the hospital, she leaves 4 paintings behind for the nurse to then distribute to all of her former friends and lovers throughout Europe. And she knows that this is going to make Sona feel a larger world, experience a larger world, maybe become the woman that she really wants to be. And so this is then what happens throughout the rest of the book. Sona goes on a journey. She goes to Prague, she goes to Florence, Paris, London, and then back home. And in so doing, she learns what exactly would have caused that painter's death. And really, what was the other side of the painter's personality that she never got to know in the hospital. And there are all these little pieces of us that make the whole of us that I think we don't show to everyone. And Mira didn't show all parts of her to Sona, but Sona eventually learns all of Mira. Because part of my writing has to be being in the setting itself and being able to smell and hear and taste and all of the things that we want a reader to experience as they read 6 Days in Bombay. I had been to Istanbul in 2019, and I had also gone to Delhi in 2019 to look at all of the real painters' work at the National Gallery of Modern Art in Delhi. Now, in 2023, I went back to Europe and went to Prague this time, and Florence, and Paris, and London. And in before I go anywhere, because I know I'm going to have to learn about what was happening in the time frame of the novel in 1937, I reach out to a lot of art historians, scholars, academicians, anybody who is really well versed in that time period, so that they can tell me what was going on and where I should go visit. Where did people hang out? Where were the resistance movements before World War II happening? What were people eating? What were they drinking? Where were the restaurants that might still be around that they used to hang out at? And I love doing that kind of research because I get to meet people from around the world, but also because I get to know things that I would not have known otherwise. Um, so in Prague, I found out about this Cafe Klarna, that is still across the National Theater, and it still exists today. And it was a place where all the bohemians and the artists and writers used to hang out. And they used to drink absinthe and just talk about life and talk, just what we might imagine artists doing in their hazy creative spirit and so on. So I went there and hung out the way that I think Sona would have followed in Mira's footsteps there. That is where Mira, the painter, used to hang out a lot. In Paris, I found out that it's not Montmartre, which I thought was always where the artists hung out, but it's actually Montparnasse. And in Montparnasse, there are all these cafes that still exist from the 1930s, where all the bohemians, the artists, and even patrons of the arts like Peggy Guggenheim used to go to talk to the artists and to buy their works and so on. So I had a chance to hang out there. And one cool little thing I found out there was that there are at the Cafe Rondal, there are still these no, Cafe Rotunda. There are still these little sketches and drawings from the artists who used to hang out at the cafe. And what the patron used to do is he would let them not have to pay their beer bill, their wine bill, whatever it is they were imbibing. But he would let them give him a little piece of art that he could then put on the wall. And when they were able to pay their bill, they could come and grab their little piece of art. But sometimes he would just let it go because it was so much nicer to have a little piece of art in the cafe itself. And in Florence, I went to the actual academia where the real painter had studied. So I got a feeling for what that was like and what it might have been for her to smell as she walked through the arcade, the smell of the linseed oil, the smell of the stones that are all around the academia. So I had a chance to sort of experience that. And then in London, I had the good fortune of running across an exhibition that took place right before the coronation of King George. What was he? The one who abdicated the throne and anyway, yeah, I can't quite remember, but yeah, so it was it was fun for me to go to all these places and to actually, be in those environments, and to be able to write about them.